7 spine-chilling disappearances exposed. Sinister cases of the haunted and the unexplained. Lisa Hartman couldn't shake the cold sweat that dripped down her spine as she flipped through the eerily detached headlines of the Cedar Grove Gazette. 7 missing. Parents left in a panic. They shouted. The seemingly perfect suburb was now a cacophony of tension, just behind the white picket fences and manicured lawns. Shadows twisted against her front porch, whispering secrets of dread as the autumn air cooled around her. Something monstrous lurked beneath the normalcy of Cedar Grove, and she felt it closing in. The once vibrant park was now desolate. Days would pass, and Lisa would notice fewer families milling about, just more empty swings creaking gently in the breeze. Children's laughter felt like a distant echo of what had been. As she watched Danny play alone, her heart raced. Was he safe? Her imagination ran wild, fabricating sinister scenarios that set her teeth on edge. Who was next? Her fingers trembled as thoughts clashed. Paranoia or instinct? It was not just a feeling. Something sinister was afoot. There were nights when Lisa would lie awake, the tightness in her chest growing heavy with dread. Lurking figures seemed to peer through her window, shadows flickering in her periphery. Were they real? Or was she losing her mind? She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, making frantic calls to the police only to be brushed off. Was it truly paranoia? Cedar Grove was a safe haven, or so they claimed. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night of the PDA meeting morphed into a fever dream of horror. Excited and full of life, Danny dashed ahead, promising to meet back at the car, but with each ticking second, Lisa's smile ebbed. Minutes melted into agonizing eons as she frantically searched through the dim hallways, shouting his name until her voice cracked with panic. Fear simmered in her gut and exploded when she found his empty seat, heart pounding against her ribcage. He was missing. Reality twisted like a knife, leaving her gasping. Was he caught up in some kind of twisted game? Each step into Cedar Grove's forsaken corners revealed more of its haunted past, abandoned schoolyards, the whispers of vengeful spirits lurking beneath the mundane facade. Local legends, chilling to the core, leaked into her mind, a business mogul tied to each disappearance, a man she had once trusted, now draped in shadow. With each fragile truth she uncovered, the encroaching darkness cemented fear into Lisa's bones. She was threading through a sinister rabbit hole, and every wrong turned deepened a chasm between her and Danny. As the winds howled ominously, releasing a shiver down her spine, she stumbled upon a crumbling old building, forgotten and almost breathing its ancient secrets. The air crackled with palpable tension, the shadows moved like hungry predators. And then, a voice sliced through the darkness. It wasn't Danny. Horror raced through her. The very secrets of Cedar Grove clawed at the tranquility she believed in. The question was no longer if she would survive, but what ugly truths she would have to face, pulling her deeper into a nightmare from which she might never wake. Would she find Danny, or would she too become just another whisper? Lisa's heart raced as she scanned the shadowed room. Who was there? The question trembled from her lips, swallowed by the oppressive silence. The air felt thick, almost alive, the kind of tension that made her skin crawl. She should have turned back, should have fled, yet some primal instinct anchored her feet. Help us! The voice was a frail whisper, fragile as autumn leaves swept through the air. Lisa froze. It was a child's voice, painfully familiar yet twisted in ways she couldn't fathom. Danny? The thought ignited a spark of courage in her chest. Danny? She called, stepping further inside. The building loomed around her, derelict and decaying, its walls soaked in stories of loss. Flickering remnants of light spilled from a broken window, illuminating trails of dust danced like wisps of forgotten souls. Help us! Come play, the voice taunted, deepening her dread. All too aware of the darkness stretching like skeletal fingers around her, Lisa pressed on. Mama lions don't back down, right? If Danny was in there, she had to go deeper, despite the growing sensation that evil was watching. The wooden floor creaked, almost laughing at her hesitance, each step an incantation drawing her closer to the unknown. The walls seemed to throb, whispering tales of those who come before, lost children who never returned to their mothers, dreams suffocated by the weight of fear embedded in these grim shadows. Lisa held her breath, focusing on the sound. It was near. Over here. Another voice bubbled out, more insistent. Lisa's pulse quickened. This time, it sounded like laughter, genuine, childlike laughter. Hope ignited beneath her dread, propelling her forward. Screw this, she mumbled to herself, her own voice recoiling against the looming despair. Flashes of past news reports filled her mind, smiling faces, vibrant memories, and then, a halt. Missing just like her Danny. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed through the fetid air, reverberating off walls that witnessed too much suffering. Lisa stumbled back, a soft gasp escaping her lips. In that moment, the reality pressed down on her. She was not alone. A figure shifted in the shadows, too humanoid, yet too distorted. Her breath caught as it moved closer. It was a man, his face obscured, his eyes burning with a glow that felt like death. Join us, be part of our game. Each word dripped with malice, each syllable wrapping around her throat like a noose. She fought the urge to bolt, rooted to the spot as terror flickered beneath her skin, igniting every survival instinct. "Danny," she shouted, desperation fraying her voice. "Mom," the response came, light and terrified, echoing somewhere through the darkness. A flicker of hope. But the laughter, the voices, a cacophony of lost souls overwhelmed her, drowning out her thoughts. Who was still alive in this nightmarish game? Before she could spin toward the sound, the figure lunged forward. Lisa stumbled back, adrenaline surging as she slammed into something solid, an old cabinet, its wood splintering under her weight. Darkness closed in, pressing against her, pushing her toward the abyss beneath the floor where countless whispers yearned for freedom. "Join us," they sang, a melody of terror that echoed through her mind, syrupy and enticing. Every instinct screamed to flee, but an unseen force pulled her toward the figure, something soulless that hungered for her essence. One step closer to the end, or perhaps a beginning she never envisioned. And then, Danny's small, frightened voice reached her again, slicing through the chaos like a beacon. "Mom, I'm scared, where are you?" Clarity surged through her, tearing through the suffocating fear. It wasn't just about finding Danny any longer. It was about escaping the madness of Cedar Grove before it consumed her whole. But as she turned to find the source of the sound, a gruesome question clawed at her. Could she truly trust any voice in this cursed place? In the shadows, the game was far from over. Lisa's heart thundered in her chest as she spun around, the oppressive darkness closing in like a vice. She could feel the chill of the air prickling her skin, each breath tasting bitter and stale. "Danny, where are you?" Panic fought with determination in her voice. She rounded the cabinet, her pulse racing as a figure loomed again, twisted and grotesque under the flickering light. The edges of its form were blurred, like a shadow struggling to maintain its shape. She couldn't tell if it was human or something worse. But one thing was clear: it was watching her, its gaze heavy and predatory. "Mom," the sound was closer now, full of trembling honesty. Lisa's mind spun, fragments of indecision clawing at her resolve. Should she follow the sound? Or should she stay and face whatever nightmare awaited her? "Come play." The laughter returned, shrill and mocking. Dread coiled inside her like a serpent, squeezing tighter with each passing second. "No," she screamed, desperation propelling her forward. Choking on her fear, she lunged toward the whisper of Danny's voice, navigating the maze of debris underfoot. Every step felt like running through molasses, the darkness heavy, like it was clawing for her ankles, trying to pull her back. The shadows writhed, shapes contorting into twisted forms. Visions of children materialized, their faces gaunt and hollow-eyed. Lisa stumbled, the scrape of bare wood sending shockwaves of terror through her. "This isn't real," she muttered, forcing herself to stay grounded. "Help us. We're trapped." A choir of children's voices, now joined in their pleas, swelled around her. Their cries echoed off the walls, morphing into a nightmarish symphony that threatened to drown her spirit. "Danny." Her voice cracked, fear shredding the last of her composure. She was losing herself, losing him. "Mom, help!" The voice was desperate now, trembling through the stagnant air, a lost echo of pure innocence begging for rescue. "Where are you?" she shouted, her throat raw. She'd come too far to turn back now. With renewed determination, she pushed past the grotesque figure, the stench of decay pulling at her stomach. It was a gamble. This game was clearly rigged, but she had to trust her instincts. Every flicker of light, every hint of movement could be a clue or a deception. As she moved deeper into the shadows, the laughter shifted, morphing into a sinister chant. "Join us," it urged, dripping with temptation. She clutched at her head, feeling the darkness claw at her mind, wrapping around her thoughts like vines choking a tree. "Danny, I'm coming," she cried, her heart racing. She had to be close. The walls seemed to pulse with life, the air vibrating with energy, tugging at her as if urging her to heed their call. Another child's voice floated through the suffocating haze. "Don't leave us. We want to play." Adrenaline surged. Could she seriously consider trusting these voices? Just then, a hand shot from the darkness, a small, cold hand. Lisa gasped, her stomach lurching as she grabbed it. "Danny?" But as she pulled the figure toward her, the child turned, face obscured in shadow. The laughter erupted around them, a cacophony of glee ringing maliciously. "Let us play together forever." Delight mixed with madness in a single heartbeat. Lisa's grip tightened, dread pooling within her as she realized this wasn't Danny. She had fallen into their trap. The moment stretched, a spine-tingling realization dawning upon her. What if Danny was not lost anymore? What if he had become part of them? As the laughter drew nearer, echoing like thunder, her instincts screamed one final warning. But when she opened her mouth to scream, the words got caught in her throat. Was escape even possible? And somewhere in that dark abyss, a question pulsed eerily. What had Cedar Grove truly taken from her? In the shadows, they waited eagerly, desperate for her answer. Lisa's mind raced, struggling against the rising tide of panic. The shadows around her seemed to stretch and snap, their forms ever shifting, almost as if the darkness had a will of its own. She could feel their hunger, palpable and hungry, swirling around her as the laughter crescendoed, a morbid symphony of delight that made her bones ache. "Danny!" She screamed again, the urgency spilling over in her voice, but all she received in return were the echoing branches of cruel laughter and the strangled cries of children lost in shadow. Her fingers trembled. The cold grip of the child's hand felt far from comforting now, more like an iron shackle binding her to this nightmare. Twisting from the grip around her, she broke free, stumbling backward. She caught a fleeting glimpse of the child's hollow cheeks, wild hair framing a face that shifted like smoke before the shadows swallowed it whole. It wasn't Danny. "Join us," the sinister chant persisted, taunting her with promises of escape from loneliness, of forever playing beneath the warm glow of laughter. It whispered sweet poison, wrapping around her heart, squeezing tighter even as her instincts screamed for her to flee. Dread and rage surged within her as she wove through the trees of shadows, each one clasping at her like skeletal hands. She lost her footing and went down, slamming against the floor with a stunning jolt. The dust rose around her, a fog of despair blanketing her senses. The mocking laughter receded into a distant giggle, and in that brief silence, the darkness seemed to rear back, retreating for just a heartbeat. Grabbing hold of the moment, she forced herself to her feet, a fire igniting inside her. It was now or never. She would find Danny or die trying. She sprinted forward, skirting past the sickening chill of those ghostly figures lingering in the periphery of her vision. Danny's voice was still there, clear amongst the chaos, but the distance to it felt impossibly endless. "Danny!" she cried, pushing herself harder, her breath quickening from exertion and fear. The hallway stretched before her like a cavern, warped light casting eerie shapes that clawed at her sanity. Could she trust that voice anymore? Was it leading her closer or deeper into danger? Suddenly, out of the darkness, a door loomed ahead, slightly ajar with a sliver of light seeping through. Hope igniting, she hurried toward it, hesitating just a heartbeat before throwing it open. What she stepped into was far worse than the suffocating shadows. The room was littered with broken toys, dolls with cracked porcelain faces staring at her, eyes filled with an eternal sorrow. The air was thick with the scent of something rotten, an image of decay that made her stomach churn. Mom Danny's voice echoed feebly from a corner, but a hiss of laughter enveloped it, twisting the desperation into a mocking sound. In the room's dim light, she saw a figure crawling along the wall, small and twisted, features obscured, moving unnaturally. It felt wrong, so acutely wrong. Danny. Panic crescendoed, and she lunged again, desperately trying to push through the memories of what this place had taken from her. As she reached out, the form turned, revealing not her son but a ghastly imitation, eyes void of life flickering in challenge. Join us, forever. All around her, the air thickened with the childlike pleas, but mingled with something darker. It crept beneath her skin, sending her heart racing erratically. Stay away from him, she shouted, voice breaking, pushing against the weight of fear that threatened to crush her beneath its weight. But as she stepped back, a cold hand snaked around her ankle. It pulled, wrenching her down into the icy grip of the spectral hands lurking below. No, she cried, knees buckling. The room spun around her, the laughter melding into a wild cacophony as shadows closed in. Then, in that moment of desperate struggle, she saw it, the shadows parting, revealing a door she hadn't noticed before, glowing dimly like a beacon. Her heart raced as hope flickered again, but so did the laughter, ramping up, echoing through the chamber, threatening to loom over her like death itself. Would she reach the door before they pulled her under? As the laughter swelled to a roar, Lisa felt the grasp begin to break, and she lunged towards the glowing escape. Would this be the way out, or just another trap? As darkness clawed at her back, the question lingered in the air. Could she truly escape, or was Cedar Grove destined to keep her forever? As she fell forward, stretching out toward the light, the malicious laughter from behind echoed like the tolling of a bell, signaling her doom. Cold fingers slipped away nearly as swiftly as they had gripped her, but she felt the creep of that darkness dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. She tumbled through the door, crashing onto a wooden floor that creaked under her weight. Groaning, she pushed herself up, heart pounding. The room was small and dimly lit, suffused with a strange, golden glow that pulsed softly from a lantern swinging drunkenly at the edge of the room, filling her with the feeling of being swallowed whole by some unknown presence. Mama, Danny's voice again, but this time it sounded softer, almost a whisper. It didn't echo, it beckoned. She turned, searching the dim corners, terror clawing at her throat. The walls seemed to breathe, a living organism that pulsed in time with her quickening heart. Danny. The only answer was silence, heavy and oppressive, as if the very air were holding its breath. Then she saw him, a small figure curled in the far corner, shadow mingling with the soft light. He sat without moving, eyes cast down, and something tightened in her chest. With each step toward him, the world around her dimmed, a cold void digging at the edges of her vision. Danny? She called, voice trembling now. He looked up, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw recognition flicker in those wide eyes before something darker rolled over them, a blankness that froze her in her place. Mom, please help me. But his voice, though filled with longing, bore an unnatural hoarseness, like someone had scraped away the innocence, leaving only a husk behind that shivered in the stillness. Glancing around, Lisa felt the shadows creeping closer. They were alive, reaching out, wanting to pull her into their depths. A memory crashed over her, Danny's laughter ringing in a sunlit park, swinging high against the blue sky. Danny. She lunged forward, but the shadows lunged faster. They lashed out from behind the toys scattered across the floor, the dolls with their cracked faces curving grimly, as if laughing at their plight. The shadows coiled together, rearranging, forming grotesque shapes that whispered her name in a symphony of malice. Join us, the chant began again, stronger this time, weaving through her thoughts and threatening to drown her in despair. No, she screamed, shaking her head violently. She couldn't let them take her son. She couldn't lose him. The shadows from the walls surged toward her now, grasping hungrily, their tendrils reaching for Danny. She dove, throwing herself between the darkness and her boy, arms wrapped protectively around him. The pressure grew, the shadows suffocating, wrapping around her limbs, desperately seeking to tear them apart. Let him go, she screamed, her voice strained, filled with a deep, primal rage. The darkness seemed to hesitate, as if considering her defiance. In that moment, a rush of warmth enveloped her, breaking through the cold grip of despair. It was brief, but a memory of laughter, of light, blossomed somewhere deep inside her, a spark igniting the fire of hope. "Danny, hold on," Lisa shouted, squeezing him tighter. In her peripheral vision, the shadows twisted, forming into indecipherable shapes, swirling in a frenzy. Rising, she dashed toward the door she'd just come through. Danny clutched to her chest, and fear propelling her forward. As she opened it, the waves of darkness recoiled, the pressure lessening, but only slightly. But just as quickly as hope bloomed, dread returned, stronger and sharper, a knife pointed straight at her heart. "Join us forever!" A chorus of laughter chased them, filling the air as she pulled Danny through the door, the shadows snapping at their heels. What lay beyond the door was a sight that stole her breath. A vast hallway stretched infinitely, lined with countless doors, each one whispering promises, some with the echoes of lost children that seemed to beckon her closer. "Mom, we can't go back," Danny murmured, fear lacing his voice, but something deeper stirred behind his wide eyes. "Which way?" she gasped, backing frantically as the darkness surged again. The walls seemed to pulse with anticipation, each door grinning maliciously. As she turned about, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed eerily from one of the doors. A chill prickled her skin, her instincts screaming at her. Who else was here in this nightmare? Lisa felt the weight of that question settle ominously above her, a heavy shadow looming ever closer. What would emerge from behind the doors? More shadows, or something else entirely? And as the footsteps grew louder, she realized she had to decide quickly: would she confront the terrifying unknown or continue to flee? Would this be the end or merely the beginning? The footfalls quickened, and the air buzzed around her as if charged with static. Jerry, the old clock in the hallway, ticked ominously, its sound morphing into a taunting rhythm that echoed in her chest. Lisa's heart raced, each beat marking a countdown she didn't want to face. "Danny, we need to move," she urged, pulling him closer. His small hands trembled in hers, and she could feel his fear pulsing like a drumbeat. They darted down the corridor, surrounded by the almost sentient doors that seemed to inch closer, whispering sweet lies into her ears. The beckoning of the past, shrouded in shadows, twisted despair into a haunting lullaby. Every door glimmered in the dim light, each one begging her to choose it. "Mom, what are we gonna do?" Danny's voice cracked. He was already pale, eyes wide and darting at each door, as if something dark lay waiting behind them all, eager to sweep them away. "Just keep running," she shouted, pushing past the gnawing temptation to stop, to look, to hope. It clawed at her mind like a feral beast, hungry for a moment's weakness. Then suddenly, the laughter returned, washing over them in waves, carrying the weight of 1,000 lost souls. "Join us," they sang. The sound echoed like a melody woven from sorrow, a siren call promising solace in the afterlife. "Danny, don't listen," Lisa yelled, her voice echoing down the hall. She felt the shadows closing in again, a curling mist at her heels, dragging her down. They reached a door taller, wider, blacker than all the rest, a stark contrast against the pallid walls. It stood half open, a brief sliver of light spilling onto the floor like spilled milk, illuminating the swirling dust. Was it hope or another trap? "Mom," Danny tugged at her sleeve. "Please let us just go in." But his voice carried an edge of panic. Did he want to flee or escape? "No, Danny, think." She could feel the pressure pushing against her, the shadows still whispering promises between them, weaving tendrils around her mind like a tight noose. "We can't just walk into whatever nightmare that is." But the shadows had other plans. A sudden gust of wind surged through the corridor, slamming a nearby door shut. The thud echoed ominously, and panic crystallized in her chest. A primal urge took root: either fight or succumb. "Mom, they're coming," Danny cried, staring wide-eyed at a mass of dark form gathering, coalescing toward the end of the hallway. They were no longer just whispers but figures, sewn together from the remnants of lost children, their faces twisted in eternal anguish. "Run!" They darted towards the black door. Lisa flung it wide open before glancing back one last time. The figures had now formed into grotesque shapes, clawing at the space between them, mouth stretching in silent screams. Together, she and Danny slipped through the door just as icy fingers brushed the back of her neck. The door slammed behind them, cutting off the cacophony of despair. They stumbled into a room that felt like a graveyard. The walls dripped with shadows, and the air tasted of copper, a dense, metallic tang that filled her throat with dread. But this room was different. It was not empty. Figures loomed in the corners, watching, waiting, their forms shifting like smoke. The very essence of their presence thrummed with danger, as if they were too much alive and yet utterly lost. "What is this place?" Danny whispered, clutching her side. Maybe they're here to help?" Lisa dared to hope, moving forward. But she could see despair etched in their faces, everyone lost much like her and Danny. Before she could speak, one figure stepped forward, its face forming from the shadows. "Why are you here?" It rasped, voice like rustling leaves. "What do you desire?" The room grew colder, the shadows growing denser, swirling around them in pulsating tendrils. Lisa felt the weight of eyes upon her, urging her to speak, to reveal their truth. She opened her mouth, but the words caught like a fishhook in her throat. What should she ask for their freedom, or her own? But then the shadows stirred again, and a chorus of voices rose, chanting in a language she couldn't understand but felt deep in her bones. The room seemed to pulse, the ground trembling beneath her feet. And then, just as her heart began to race once more, she heard a familiar voice among the currents of despair. "Mommy!" It sent icy fingers down her spine, releasing a surge of terror that drowned out her thoughts. Was it Danny? Or the abyss pulling them closer? She turned to Danny, eyes wide with raw terror, swallowed by the unsettling feeling of hope shattering like glass. And suddenly, from the darkness, a new choice lay ahead, a choice that could either save them or seal their fates forever. Would she be able to find the strength to confront the truth, no matter the cost? Or would she allow the shadows to snuff out their light completely? The shadows thickened, swirling around Lisa and Danny, a tangible weight that pressed against them. She clutched Danny tighter, her breath quickening with panic. The murmuring voices grew louder, a cacophony of distorted cries merging into a singular plea. "Mommy!" echoed from every corner, each call entwined with 100 fears, shaping the air like a living entity ready to strike. "What do you desire?" The figure repeated, its form flickering like candlelight, reflecting the chaos in Lisa's heart. Its voice crawled beneath her skin, igniting an unsettling curiosity intertwined with dread. Lisa instinctively dropped to her knees, a desperate instinct taking over. "We just want to get out of here," she pleaded, her voice trembling. The floor felt cold against her skin, wrapping her in a shroud of despair. Danny squeezed her hand harder as shadows began to slither forward, creeping toward them at an agonizing pace. The figures around them remained hushed, but their faces twisted in sympathy and agony, as if they were compelled to witness their looming fate. "Every choice carries a price," the figure warned. Its eyes, dark and swirling, seemed to pierce right through her. "What will you give to escape?" She bit her lip, the reality of her choice crashing over her like a tsunami. What could she sacrifice? Would it be her own freedom, or something much worse? In a world where the shadows preyed on her fears, how could she determine the cost? "Danny," she began, but the words faltered. The weight of her son's small frame, trembling beside her, was an anchor firmly rooted in her heart. As the whispers grew more insistent, the chilling truth began to surface. Some of those lost figures must have made choices before, sacrifices leading them to this twisted purgatory. Each plea a testament to a price already paid. The pulse of shadows around them quickened, their energy a storm of restless souls, and Lisa felt overwhelmed by the temptation to claim something, anything to rid them of their horror. "I want to save my son," she shouted, her voice slicing through the rising tide of screams. A moment of silence fell in the room, a breath held as if the air itself paused in astonishment. The figure stepped closer, and Lisa could make out its face blurred, but she saw the sorrow etched deep within. "Are you willing to take his pain upon yourself?" it asked, voice swirling around them like smoke. "No," Danny shouted, pulling back in horror. "Mom, no?" But the shadows slithered over her thoughts, caressing her mind like tendrils of fog. Was it truly necessary to bear this suffering? She hesitated, heart racing. The whispers began again, wrapping around her like chains. Join us, dear mother. In that moment, Lisa's vision flared. She saw flashes of memories long buried. Laughter with Danny, his small hand in hers, and the warmth of embracing him safe. What if she could dive into that darkness and extract him from the abyss? No, she cried, but uncertainty filled her heart. As if sensing her hesitation, the shadows surged closer, some reaching, some pulling back, grasping for her decision like ants in a frenzy. The room began to tremble, the air distorting with urgency. The chorus of voices roared, desperate cries melded with laughter, the sweet promise of a release, tainted by the sinister undertone of consequence. "Mommy, please don't," Danny cried, his small voice cracking with fear. Torn between fury and despair, today love and its potential betrayal melded like poisonous concoctions swirling in a cauldron. Lisa recognized what lay ahead was a decision gravely entwined with the future itself. The shadows grew louder, and in an instant, the pulsating weight of their souls pressed down. She could feel it. Every heartbeat echoed with the choice looming ahead, a path that could lead to salvation or annihilation. "What do you desire?" the figure asked again, the shadows tightening around her. With no escape from their grasp and the weight of her son's future hanging in the balance, Lisa took a deep breath, preparing to confront the choice that could alter everything. She opened her mouth once again, but the right words danced just out of reach, swallowed by the chaos around them. But amidst all the turmoil, a sudden flicker caught her eye, a small, glimmering key hanging above the shadows, suspended, promising a way out. A final twist of fate waited beyond. The question loomed clear. Would she grasp it, or would they dive deeper into the abyss? Lisa's heart raced, the shadows thrumming with a desperate pulse. That key, its shimmering surface drew her in like a moth to a flame. It hung tantalizingly, barely out of reach, promising freedom yet hinting at peril. She looked from the key to the figure before her. Was it a trap? Something sinister cloaked in temptation? "Mom." Danny's voice cut through the heavy, suffocating air. His grip on her hand was tight, a small anchor in the chaos. "We can't trust it. We have to go." But the thrumming intensified. The shadows danced, twisting and curling, urging her to make a choice. To decide. "Every choice carries a price," the figure whispered, the words curling around her mind like smoke, wrapping tightly until they held her still. The key sparkled, almost singing her name. She felt heat radiate from it, a promise of safety, and yet her gut churned. What if the cost was too high? What if she lost herself? Lisa took a shuddering breath, weighing her options. The air around her pulsed with a menace as shadows clutched at her ankles, pulling her closer, whispering promises. Each breath filled her lungs with dread. "Mommy," Danny whimpered, his small voice trembling as he peered up with wide, terror-filled eyes. "Please don't." With every second that passed, the whispers grew louder, merging into a shrill scream, drowning out everything else. The anguish and desperation of voices that had come before collided into her mind, 1,000 desperate souls trapped in torment, each marking a choice lost to darkness. Ignoring her instinct was becoming unbearable. She was on the edge, aching to tip over and grasp that glimmering key. What if? She thought urgently. What if it was the escape they needed? Fingers trembling, heart pounding, she fought against the pull of darkness. "I'm going for it." The words escaped, raw and desperate, and she lunged towards the key, feeling the shadows claw at her, like icy hands grasping her waist. Danny screamed, "No," with a sheer panic that sent shivers down her spine. Just as her fingers brushed the cool metal, a blinding light filled the room, halting time. The shadows writhed violently, shrieking in agony as if she had struck them. But the moment she touched the key, reality dissolved around her. Everything shifted with a violent twist. Colors distorted, swirling together into a vortex, an infinite tunnel of haunting memories and regrets. Clutching the key as if it were her lifeline, she tightened her hold on Danny's hand, the two of them spiraling into the maelstrom. "Mom, what is happening?" Danny's voice was a chaotic mix of fear and confusion, cutting through the dark like a flare in the night. "Hang on," she shouted back, her voice nearly lost in the storm surrounding them. They were drawn deeper into the whirlwind, and suddenly, with a jarring crash, they landed on a cold, hard floor. The world around them was different, echoes of the shadows still keenly felt. Unearthly noises filled the air, howls, screams, and the eerie chant of "Join us, dear mother" reverberated loudly. Heart racing, they staggered to their feet. The landscape twisted and undulated, a blend of a fiery sunset and inky darkness that seemed to breathe and pulse, just like their frantic hearts. Lisa scanned the horizon. "Where are we?" But a soft, familiar laugh cut through the dread. Not from Danny, but from somewhere ahead, a sound that sent frozen prickles racing down her spine. Mommy, that voice. She knew it. Panic swept over Lisa, her throat tightening. She turned to Danny, his face pale, eyes wide in terror. "No, we can't. That's not," but the shadows were upon them, beckoning, promising. "Find us, dear mother." Together, they took a step back, but shadows surged forth in a rush, shifting rapidly, a dark tide threatening to swallow them whole. Lisa's breath hitched. What awaited them in this dark new world? Each passing second unfolded with dread, the weight of countless choices pressing in. She clutched the key tightly, its surface glowing warm against her skin. What would that choice entail now? And from the darkness, that laugh echoed once more. "Mommy, I'm waiting." The foreboding question loomed larger than before. What darkness had she unleashed by grasping that key? The shadows closed in, suffocating the air around them. Lisa could feel their weight, pressing down like 1,000 hands, each cold and eager to claim her. Danny's grip was relentless, his small fingers digging into her palm as they staggered back. The whispers twisted and turned, dark promises curling into her ears, urging her to move forward, to abandon reason. "Mommy," Danny's voice cracked, raw with fear. "We need to get out of here." "Where is here?" she whispered, her mind racing. The landscape around them undulated, saturated with colors that should not exist. Flames danced alongside shadows, revealing glimpses of twisted figures darting just beyond perception. And that laughter, its bittersweet melody, floated on the air, unmistakable and sinister. "Mommy, I'm waiting." It echoed like a ghostly taunt, relentless and suffocating. Yes, but waiting for what? Lisa thought, panic clawing at her heart. Was that laughter from someone she once knew? Or something that only wore her child's face? Each thought twisted the knife deeper. The shadows surged towards them, writhing and coiling like serpents. Lisa darted a glance at Danny. His eyes shimmered with unshed tears, full of alarm and uncertainty. Every instinct screamed for them to flee, but they were trapped, tethered to this nightmare and the figure that called her. "Mommy, where are you?" The voice echoed again, heavier this time. A world welled up in the back of her mind. Memories flooded, visions of a time when laughter filled their home, unaware of shadows creeping ever closer. The shadows, however, seemed to thrive on her hesitation. They coiled tighter, teasing at the edges of her thoughts. Join us now," she shouted, the word bursting forth with the force of raw defiance. "I will not." But the shadows only laughed, a dark chorus, and surged closer still. "What do you want?" Lisa felt her throat tighten, desperation rising within her. "What do you want from me?" The shapes writhed in response, morphing into familiar forms, bodies she wished to forget, faces twisted in anguish. They reached out, clawing towards her, begging her to recognize them. A dizzying swirl of emotion surged within her: anger, grief, and regret. "Mommy," that voice again, softer now, trickling through her despair like poison. "Help me, Mom. Please." Danny's urgent plea snapped her back to fevered reality. "We gotta go." Lisa felt the key pulse in her hand, a beacon of warmth against the cold reality around them. But she hesitated. What if it drew them deeper into this nightmare? Did she dare use it? "Mommy, join us." She turned, gripping the key tighter. Danny's wide eyes filled with pleading urgency. "Let us find a way out." In that moment, the shadows surged, almost in response to her resolve. A darkness swelled around them, eager to latch on. She could feel her heartbeat, pounding like a war drum in her chest, pounding out a rhythm of fear and determination. "Hold on." With a sudden surge of will, she pulled Danny close, readying herself. What lies ahead remained hidden, shrouded in the depth of darkness. But whatever it was, she'd face it head-on. Lisa thrust the key forward, desperate to unravel this deadly riddle, praying it would lead them to freedom rather than deeper into despair. But the moment she did, the shadows shrieked, howling like a windstorm. A rift opened, blinding and turbulent. "Mom!" Danny screamed, holding tightly to her. "I don't want to." What if before he could finish, they were sucked in, pulled toward the void? Just when they thought they would be engulfed, the darkness split asunder, revealing a flickering light in the distance. "Mommy, I need you." The voice slipped through once again, reverberating from inside the light. Lisa's heart raced. Who or what was waiting on the other side? And would that passage lead them back to safety or deeper into the unknown? The very fabric of her reality rippled, uncertain, chaotic. As Lisa took a breath, preparing to leap into the unknown, she could only wonder what awaited them beyond that blinding promise. The light enveloped them, a bittersweet blend of warmth and fear, pulling them closer. As they tumbled through the rift, Lisa clutched Danny's hand tightly, feeling the familiar warmth of her son grounding her. The world around them whirled in flashes of color, echoes of laughter, whispers of long-forgotten dreams, and the haunting melodies of the shadows that threatened to reclaim them. Then, silence fell at once, like someone had flipped a switch. They landed on solid ground, the air now thick with the scent of grass and earth. Blinking, Lisa looked around, a sob escaping her as recognition filled her senses. They were back in Cedar Grove, beneath the sprawling oak tree in the park. It felt surreal, yet achingly real. "Mom, are we safe now?" Danny asked, his voice small, tinged with disbelief as he took in the familiar scene. "Yes, we are," Lisa breathed, her heart pounding as she looked around. The park was vibrant once more, children laughing and playing on swings, families enjoying the warm glow of the sun. For an instant, it felt as if none of the darkness had ever existed. But deep inside, a part of her shivered at the thought, memories of despair still fresh. "Mommy!" A voice rang out, pulling her attention. A little girl rushed towards them, bright eyes shining under curls of golden hair. Lisa's heart lurched as she recognized her. It was her daughter, Lily, lost for so long, the bright spot in a dark world. She knelt and enveloped the child in her arms, tears streaming as relief poured over her. "Lily, I thought I lost you," Lisa whispered, holding her tight. "I missed you, Mommy." The little girl sniffled, her warmth melting the last remnants of fear in Lisa's heart. The shadows were gone, fading into the corners of her mind, and the memories of the other children were little more than a whisper now. But there was still a weight to carry. The whispers of the ones who remained lost would haunt her forever. "Danny, what's wrong?" She suddenly noticed him standing apart, a frown knitting his brows. "They'll come back," he whispered, eyes wide with worry, pointing toward the shadows at the edges of the park, faint and flickering, tempting and sinister. "No, they won't," Lisa asserted, firmness edging her voice. "We're not alone anymore. We're a family." Together, they faced the shadows, an unwavering trio shining against the dark, shoulder to shoulder, hearts united in determination not to let fear dictate their futures. With each step they took, the shadows retreated, the oppressive weight lifting just a fraction as laughter filled the air, bright and buoyant. As they moved away from the park, Lisa could feel that key still warm in her pocket. It represented not just an escape, but a promise, a reminder of bravery, love, and the pain endured to reclaim the light, all the darkness brushed aside by the fierce bond of family. "Let us go home, kiddos," she murmured with a smile, wrapping her arms around her children as they ventured forward, leaving behind the echoes of Cedar Grove's haunting past. In the end, they were more than survivors. They were warriors, united against the darkness that tried to consume them. And with every laugh, every joyful moment, they would continue to push back against it, stronger together. And in the echoes of the park, the laughter grew louder, bright, and defiant, a symphony that drowned out the shadows, reminding them of the vitality of hope and love. Now that you've reached the end of this intense journey, here's what I need from you. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories waiting just for you. Your support is crucial. Smash that like button now. It fuels the algorithm and helps spread our storytelling to everyone. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. What do you think happened next for Lisa and her family? Let's discuss. And don't wait even one more second. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel. Through these actions, your engagement is what keeps this community alive.